It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. You do. From the Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, coming off a great sports weekend, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host John Riley. We welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast, brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. If you've got projects for 2025, they've got materials, you want ideas, they can help you. Dixie Line Lumber. John Riley, did you enjoy the NFL weekend? Wow.
Yeah, a lot of blowouts, a fun game at the very end, and sadly some blowouts in college basketball as well.
We're going lots of different directions. Just a couple of business notes. After we cover the topics on the table, we open it up to you. We call this Fans Forum. We give you the opportunity to participate, ask a question, make a statement. You jump into it by going to the chat box right there on the YouTube channel. John, just describe more specifically for the newbies how Fans Forum works.
Pick up a phone, make a call. So actually, you don't call in anymore, but if you got a comment or question on the world of sports for Lee, type in your question in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum. And they're going to be piling in here pretty quick.
Just a couple of other reminders. If you like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day of the week. LeeHacksawHamilton.com. You won't believe the volume of information that's available. When you go to my website, there's an orange box right on the homepage. Fill it out, get on the email list, become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You're on social media. Want you to join my team, Twitter All-Star Team on X. It's just go to @Hacksaw1090, @Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. Want you to share, want you to subscribe. Tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. on the podcast, and subscribe. When you subscribe, you will then get the alerts every time we post new video, new information up on the YouTube channel. And give us a thumbs up, give us a 5-star rating, because that helps us a great deal. John, are you ready for this? Because we're going to lots of different directions.
We are. And we're going to talk about the NFL and the Chargers game. And I think we're going to get a big whooping of I told you so here.
Charger season comes to a terrible conclusion. A crash and burn playoff game. The Texans survived. Justin Herbert did not. Houston's defense, 4 picks, 4 quarterback sacks, 11 hits on the quarterback, 7 pressures, 5 tackles for losses. They were unbelievable, and they got progressively stronger and stronger as the game wore on. Justin Herbert had no rhythm at all, no room to maneuver in the pocket. He had no protection whatsoever, and he made some bad decisions in the course of all the heat that he was under. There were, of course, the 4 picks. There were 3 critical drops. There were the 4 sacks. In one stretch, Justin Herbert was so out of sync, he was 1 for 9 throwing the football over 4 possessions in a row, and he finished 14 for 32. The Texans were unbelievable. They survived misery at the start of the game. I thought they were going to get blown out into the parking lot. They made so many sacks, so many mistakes early. They wound up, though, with 429 yards in offense. They blew a shotgun snap that C.J. Stroud picked up and turned into a 34-yard pass. They blew a near tackle in the end zone that Stroud busted a 27-yard run off the scramble. They had a 99-yard touchdown drive against the Chargers. And then at the end of the game, when they're trying to seal the deal, Joe Mixon had 11 carries in a 13-play series to get them a touchdown. Nico Collins had 7 catches for 122. Early in the game, they survived 3 turnovers, Houston did. They survived 6 major stupid penalties, and yet the Chargers could not capitalize on any of it because the Chargers were poor. Chargers wasted Ladd McConkey's 9-catch, 197-yard day, including that 86-yard touchdown heave. The Bolts had no run game. Bolts wide receivers, tight ends dropped passes. The offensive line was an utter failure. The running backs averaged only 2.8 yards per carry. And as I said, the O-line allowed that quarterback to get pounded, and there were 5 tackles for losses. Enough with the conversation about Harbaugh, change of culture, and success. Enough with the conversation about Greg Roman, brilliant play caller. Yeah, where the hell was your run game? Where was your max protection package to help your quarterback out who was getting knocked around? This was a complete team failure. At the end of the day, Justin Herbert, I still think, is one of the bright young quarterbacks in the league. He's thrown for more yards and more touchdowns than any quarterback in the first 5 years of their career, and yet he's never won a playoff game. He's taken a real bashing on social media from Charger fans, which I think is grossly unfair. This was a team failure from Harbaugh through Roman, Jesse Minter, and just the execution along the way. And at the end of the day, what did I say weeks upon weeks going towards the playoffs about the Chargers? Who have you beaten? They haven't beaten anybody. And in the 7 losses they got punched in the mouth 7 different times. So I think it's an ugly ending to the season. They probably need another good Joe Ortiz draft, maybe some adjustments in terms of free agency. I think there are veterans who are going to leave. Khalil Mack today talked about retirement, which would be a setback because he's been rock solid. Joey Bosa is still earning an awful lot of money, but I don't think he's the player they ever thought he would turn out to be. So at the end of the day, I come away from the Chargers' end of the season loss to Houston just really discouraged because I thought that Herbert had arrived as a star, and here we are, postseason play, which is a different breed of cat, John. Postseason play, they got punched in the mouth and they played really poorly, and the kid quarterback bore the brunt of all the beatings.
Yeah, it was awful. It was chargering. It was the Dean Spanos curse. It was everything we've talked about with the Chargers, and they got into the playoffs this year, and we're like excited about that. But, Herbert was like hitting Disley right in the hands. He kept dropping the ball. There was just a lot of things that went wrong in that game, like that 99-yard touchdown drive and that broken play that they turned into like a 35 or 40-yard pass. I mean, everything went wrong. It was just a colossal, cluster. And I don't know. I'm beginning to wonder, is Justin Herbert really as good as you think he is? Because leadership matters. Finding a way to win at the end of the game matters. And sure, he needs a better support cast. But, 0-2 in the playoffs.
End of the day, though, he had people in his face, people hitting him, people at his legs, nowhere to move, could not follow through on his passes, which I go back then to play calls. Where is Greg Roman in terms of max protection, keeping tight ends in to help block? Where is Greg Roman in terms of running sprint draws? Where's Greg Roman in terms of doing rollout stuff to get him away from the pressure and the crush? None of that happened during the course of the game, and the quarterback bore the brunt of everything Houston was throwing at him. Take nothing away from Houston. That defensive front and those edge rushers and that linebacker, Will Anderson, those guys were everywhere. But the Chargers front did nothing to help the kid quarterback. So lousy end of the season. Statistically, Herbert drew raves from a lot of people about being right on the doorstep of stardom. This is a setback, but I think it's more on the team than it is just on the quarterback.
Well, yeah, but the quarterback gets the credit and takes the blame, right? That's just all part of the deal for being a quarterback. But there were a lot of passes that Herbert threw that were over people's heads that were not accurate. Was he in duress, perhaps?
But, yeah, he was.
But the NFL quarterbacks, all of them are under duress at various points. Now, granted, yeah, the Chargers could have played better. I'm just saying, I don't think Justin Herbert is as good as we think he is. We seem to make an exception. Like, Herbert's good. The rest of the team is a problem. It's not Herbert's fault. Well, at some point, it's got to be Herbert's fault, too.
Okay, Fans Forum chat box is open. Plain and simple. I'm on this street corner with my opinion. This was a collective team failure. My co-host is over there throwing rocks at the Charger quarterback. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with John? Better yet, what have you got to say? Do you think we can get NFL fans, Fans Forum, fill up the chat box right now, give me an opinion? Don't you get me riled up today. Okay.
Herbert's part of the collective, right? Yeah.
Okay. Crash and burn. Charger playoff game, your gut feel, your reaction. Fans forum chat box is open. Other games, there were some blowouts, and then there were some good games.
Yeah, I mean, at first it didn't look very good. It wasn't as entertaining until the final one.
Start about Baltimore Ravens. They stomped the Steelers. I would never think in any day, me doing sports talk, I'd have a game in which we're talking Pittsburgh Steeler defense gives up 299 yards rushing. That's what they did.
Ooh.
Baltimore just, and Pittsburgh just had no answer. Derrick Henry had 186 on the ground. Lamar Jackson, 125 through the air, and he ran for 82 more. Baltimore's offense piled up 464 yards against the Steel Curtain defense. Steelers are the highest paid defense in the NFL, and they got trashed. The bigger issue is Pittsburgh's pedestrian offense. They could not move the football. They could not run the football. They don't have big pass plays down the field. You can't live with the tight end driven offense. Mike Tomlin has taken enormous heat in Pittsburgh. Tomlin, of course, has never had a losing season in 18 years, but Tomlin has gone 6 games in a row with playoff losses. Steelers have not won a playoff game in 8 years. However, the Steelers indicated vote of confidence this morning. Mike Tomlin remains as the coach. What I think Pittsburgh has to do is hit the reset button as to what kind of players they're going to draft or sign in free agency that is going to change the offense. Because they can't run a Neanderthal offense in this modern day NFL offense where everybody's heaving the ball down the field and everybody's got speed. Steelers have also got to make a decision what they're going to do about the latest bad citizen at wide receiver, George Pickens. He may be a great individual talent, but after a while, you get tired of the Antonio Brown tactics and the Deontay Johnson incidents and George Pickens' unhappiness. Maybe it's time to move on from that guy. Like I say, hit the reset button because they really needed a lot of help on offense to complement what they've got on defense. So you got the Ravens pounding Pittsburgh. Buffalo. At the end of the day, they are who they are, which is really good, really deep, really diverse. Denver had a really collectively good season in terms of growth. Kid quarterback, rebuilt offensive line, finally unlocked the mystery of what their wide receiver core should be, the growth of Bo Nix, and a defense that had 63 quarterback sacks and 29 takeaways this season. I thought Denver took this thing as far as they could, but they were playing the Bills and they were playing in Buffalo, and that was hard. Josh Allen, 272, couple of touchdowns. James Cook, who in one calendar year has emerged as an explosive running back, had 120 yards rushing. The Bills outgained Denver 424 to 224. So at the end of the day, Buffalo continues its drive towards greatness. Denver, I think, took a huge step forward with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. They're going to have to need more players. Philadelphia destroys Green Bay. The Mean Green defense, 3 picks, interception, 2 sacks, and just created mayhem around the quarterback, Jordan Love. Saquon Barkley, 119 rushing. Jalen Hurts, they handled him with kid gloves. Don't run the football. He, of course, had the concussion issues. He's got 131 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert. Did you see him catch that ball, the tight end, out in the flat and roar down the field, stiff arm, stiff arm, stiff arm, and then drag guys into the end zone? That's who the Eagles are. That's how the Eagles play. Jordan Love was, I thought, overwhelmed, 3 for 212, but the three interceptions, stage a little bit too big for him, and they lost 6 players in the game with injuries. They lost 2 starting offensive linemen. They lost 2 wide receivers, including Romeo Doubs, again with another concussion. Then they lost one of their linebackers. Green Bay was just never in the game per se. The stage for them was too big. I sit there and I watch a lot of NFL football. I can't remember a game in which I sat there and watched on TV and said, I can't wait for the next possession. I can't wait to see what this quarterback's going to do after what that quarterback just did. What a shootout. Washington wins the shootout on the Suncoast. Jaden Daniels makes all the plays for the Commanders. Baker Mayfield left his heart on the field, but he lost a football at the end of the game that resulted in the game-winning touchdown, but he played his guts out too. Washington's got a collective of so many role players that are not household names that step up and make a pile of plays. And Zane Gonzalez, street free agent kicker, 3 field goals and doink, last field goal that ricochets off the upright and goes in. Washington, first playoff win since 2005. Now, that was a fun game because I couldn't wait to see what Jaden Daniels was going to do with the ball. Then I couldn't wait to see what Baker Mayfield would do in response. And those two guys lived up to the billing. So, John, my thoughts on the games over the weekend. Your thoughts, Ravens, Bills, Eagles, Commanders.
Yeah, the first 3 games were just beatdowns. And Derrick Henry, man, that guy is special. And we kind of knew the Ravens were going to roll in that game. But the Pittsburgh, what are they going to do at quarterback? I mean, you can't go long-term with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. They got to make a move, right?
It's a big issue in Pittsburgh. But there's a monster of issues, and they're all on the offensive side of the football. Russell Wilson had stretches in midseason in which he played pretty well, but they don't have enough firepower. They don't have enough weapons. They don't have enough skill, speed guys. They need to go get that. They need to as I said, hit the reset button as to the type of, quote, player they're going to get. And they need to get rid of the trouble people, Pickens included. So Pittsburgh's got a lot of work to be done. I still think you can win with Russell Wilson if you give Russell Wilson more skill guys. They don't have skill guys, and they got an old quarterback. So that side of the ball, Pittsburgh's got a lot of trouble.
He looks old, though. Russell Wilson looks old to me. Like, moving on, the Bills game, yeah, they're loaded. Josh Allen is special as well. I really liked how Denver took some risks early on in that game, had that fake punt. They were going for it on 4th down. Good for those guys. But, Bo Nix, rookie, making it this far in that game, I'm rooting for that kid.
Oh, I did. Bo Nix. He's gifted, and he's confident, and he's ballsy, and he's athletic, and he's got a cannon for an arm. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He has to scramble a lot to make plays. He's the reason they were ever in the playoffs. He's the reason they won 9 games during the course of the season. Now they need to add more things there. But, you take Sean Payton's intelligence in his playbook with Bo Nix's intelligence and just his style. That's a pretty good combo. Got to get more players there in Denver.
Yeah, and the other 2 games, I mean, yeah, Philly rolled, but in the Washington Buccaneers game was special. First of all, I'm happy Washington won. It's been forever since they won a playoff game, and it was funny seeing the doink go in. Did you see the kicker? Like, he was coming on the field and he was like messing with his hair. I mean, the nerves going through that young man must have been just off the chart. Thank God it went through.
And he's been on a street a lot. He's probably been with 5 teams, although that's the life of a kicker. Suddenly you wake up one morning and it all clicks. You know what to do and you know how to handle it, whether it's the pressure or it's the mechanics of being a field goal kicker. But I mean, Zane Gonzalez has been all over the parking lot. He's got a lot of stickers on his suitcase of different teams he's gone to camp with. But that was pretty cool. And Jaden Daniels, is he the real deal?
Yeah, he's fun. I mean, he is the real deal.
Okay, so those are the playoff games. And by the way, we got Monday Night Football to talk about. How cool is this?
It's going to be great, and it's going to be in Phoenix.
Yeah. Here's a burning question I guess I have to answer about this situation. Rams lose the potential of 72,000 fans wearing blue and gold in LA because the game has been moved because of the fires. They did sell 35,000 tickets to Rams fans in LA who are going to make this trek for this game on Monday night. So there will be some fans there, but it's going to be more of a generic crowd unless everybody from Minneapolis shows up wearing purple. Be interested to see what the crowd is really like. But this is going to be a good game. This is going to be Stafford versus Darnold. This is going to be bombs away throwing offense. Burning question, can the Rams kid DBs hold up to everything Minnesota's got coming off the line of scrimmage, notably Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, between them a combined 146 receptions? Can Darnold hold up against Verse, Fisk, Kobe, and the blitz package? Because I got to believe Sean McVay is going to send a ton of guys after Sam Darnold to try to disrupt his flow. Kyron Williams, can he get 100 games for the Rams against a rugged, very active Minnesota defense? Brian Flores is a very, very good defensive coordinator. Does the week of rest help Stafford, Kupp, Puka, and Higbee? Because they all sat out last week in what effectively became a bye week for the Rams skill guys. Does the loss of the home field advantage make a big difference? And then there's the chess game. There is the brightness and the brilliance of Kevin O'Connell's playbook versus all the stuff that Sean McVay has compiled in his playbook defensively over the years as head coach. The battle of formations and who can beat the other guy in the formations and the matchups, that's going to be worth watching. I think this is a Monday night yet. This is going to be a good game.
Yeah. But, the first 5 games, 4 of them were just routes, so we deserve a good game. And I think this game is going to do it for us. And to your point, I think both coaches, both quarterbacks, and all the drama around the LA Fires is going to be something. Hey, just a quick tangent. Did you see how all the celebrities and other NFL people donating money to the LA Fires, but the Chargers seem to be cheap and they didn't really give as much as everybody else?
Well, the Chargers were one of the first ones, so they're donating $200,000 to the Red Cross. Okay, that's fine. Hours later, Dodger first baseman Freddie Freeman himself personally donated $300,000. And then the Houston Texans, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Rams donated $1 million apiece. This is either toward the Red Cross, LA Fire Aid,
Right.
etc. Within the hour, just as we were coming on the air, all the professional teams in Los Angeles, from the NFL to the NBA to the Major League Baseball teams to the NHL, donated a combined $8 million to LA Fire Aid. But yeah, you're correct. I mean, the Chargers donated $200,000. Freddie Freeman gave $300 out of his own checking account, and then all these out-of-town clubs started to donate $1 million apiece. But LA just got $8 million from a collective.
Good.
So very good for that. So listen, you got an opinion on Rams, Vikings? Pile in here. Pile on. Tell me what you think about Monday Night Football. You got a comment about the other playoff games? Feel free. There's a lot of topics on the table, all of them spinning around the gridiron, and we're not done talking. Next topic, John.
Yeah, the coaches, the carousel, it's still spinning.
Yeah, this whole thing is really rolling. Raiders at this hour on a Monday are meeting with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll now becomes the hot candidate. They did meet with Ben Johnson, the Detroit offensive coordinator. I'm to believe that he's not going to consider the Raiders. They have a meeting with Robert Saleh, the former 49er defensive coordinator, Jets head coach. They like him. They like his persona. He's going to interview on Thursday. Deion Sanders' agent contacted Tom Brady, Coach Prime, Neon Deion, expressing interest. That'd be a fascinating hire, except the Raiders need to stop going after the shiny thing out there. I'm not sure Deion's ready to be a pro coach. They did hire a search firm who will be the point people for the new general manager. Hottest general manager candidate comes from Tampa Bay. His name is John Spytek. Spytek has a close relationship with Tom Brady. Brady is carrying a lot of influence in every facet of the operation and the organization. Source in Las Vegas indicated it's Tom Brady's show now. And by the way, the outgoing general manager, Tom Telesco, I had the chance to talk to him this weekend. He said he knew it would be hard. It was hard. He said, I left behind 10 draft picks and $107 million in cap space. So whoever comes in the front door will inherit all the hard work that Telesco did over a 9 to 10 month span. I got to believe if you get the right general manager, and it might be Spytek from Tampa, and you get the right leader in Pete Carroll, despite his age, he's so much younger, and you know how he got players to rally and play so well for him. Seahawks went to a Super Bowl with Pete Carroll. I think with those guys, with the 10 draft picks and $107 million cap space, you might be able to flip this thing a little bit faster. But where they're going to go get a quarterback is a big issue because they played themselves out of the 1 and 2 pick for the top quarterback spot. So maybe it's going to be in free agency. But if I were king, I'd hire Pete Carroll. And based on what NFL people have intimated to me, Spytek looks like the right guy as the general manager because he and Brady are on the same wavelength. So that's where we are with the Raiders. New England, they got it done. They hired Mike Vrabel. Within a week after interviewing him, Patriots bring the linebacker back as their head coach. I'm led to believe Josh McDaniels and some of the coaches that are on Belichick's staff who were with them when Vrabel was a linebacker are going to come back too. Their big issue, they got the quarterback. Their big issue, they got to get the right offensive linemen. They got to get the right wide receivers to fix the offense. Bears, I think Ben Johnson takes the job because Caleb Williams is there more than anybody else. Pete Carroll did interview, but I think they need an offensive guru to continue to mold and develop that kid quarterback. I think once Detroit is eliminated from postseason play or wins the Super Bowl, that Ben Johnson probably winds up as the head coach. The bigger storyline is what happened today at the Star. Dallas Cowboys ended talks with Mike McCarthy. He's gone. Mike McCarthy becomes a free agent tomorrow at 5 p.m., close of business day. Team in a free fall this year, wiped out by injuries. I was led to believe they offered him a 1-year extension. Mike McCarthy was never going to do that. They didn't want to go 4 years because maybe they're afraid this thing's getting into a free fall. But, McCarthy, the criticism, a bit unfair. He won 12 games in a row, 12 games 3 years in a row. That's pretty hard in the NFL. But his postseason record was only 1-3. McCarthy, 49-35 in Dallas. Career record 174-112, Dallas and Green Bay. The Bears reportedly want to talk to him, but I happen to think Ben Johnson's still the guy. The Saints and Jacksonville have surfaced. It makes sense in New Orleans because they got the veteran quarterback, Derek Carr, and Mike McCarthy coached there before. And it really makes sense in Jacksonville where they got a young Trevor Lawrence who really needs somebody to guide him with success. And they got a lot of skilled people there. Jacksonville was wrecked by injuries. Wild card name in Dallas, Cliff Kingsbury. I think had been viewed as an insurance policy all along. He's smart as a coordinator, didn't succeed as head coach in Arizona, but boy, they got players. They got a lot of players, I think, they're in Dallas. Just got to get them healthy. I always wondered this. You think Bill Belichick, as of noon today, has any buyer's remorse? Because if Belichick had not taken the North Carolina job, he might have been the guy either going to the Raiders or maybe the guy going to Dallas. So, John, coaching carousel, give me some opinions.
I don't know if it's safe to say this, but is there hope for the Raiders? I mean, like you said, Telesco left them a treasure chest of draft picks and cap space. You got Tom Brady like being the bright light mind. And then if they get a legit, I mean, not to say Telesco isn't legit, but they get another general manager that's a real deal, this could be shaping up to something special. Now, just as an aside, imagine if Dion landed in Las Vegas when Shador was going to get drafted by some other team, like the Jets or the Giants. I mean, that would be kind of messy. I don't think Dion leaves Colorado.
Well, everything's changed as it relates to the draft, because Tennessee's got the number 1 pick and they're dropping hints everywhere. They're going to take Cam Ward of Miami. But now Cleveland with the catastrophe that is Deshaun Watson, Cleveland at number 2 maybe takes Shador. And, of course, the Raiders, by virtue of winning those 2 games at the end of the season, knocked themselves way back of the pack in terms of selecting a quarterback. So, and this is not a quarterback-deep draft. But can the Raiders flip this? Well, probably with a free agent acquisition, a rental at quarterback, plus the 10 draft picks that Telesco gave him as a Christmas gift before they fired him. So you got a comment. What do you think about McCarthy?
He had a great run there in Green Bay, but with the Cowboys, it's just a sputtering situation. Is he almost like a Marty Schottenheimer, where you can win in the regular season, not in the postseason? You see him on the sidelines and some of the video clips of him, he looks like he has no confidence. He doesn't project himself as a leader of men, in my opinion. But Dallas, do you think maybe they get caught up in the same thing as the Raiders going for the shiny object?
Well, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, and then you have one season ravaged by injuries, and you fire the guy? That doesn't seem fair, but that maybe they think there was erosion in leadership, and that's why they supposedly offered him a 1-year extension. McCarthy said, no, not me, not 1 year.
Yeah.
Not with 174 career wins. I'm not going to take a 1-year contract from Jerry Jones. So Jerry's been very loyal, though. I mean, people may not like Jerry, may not like Jerry's palace, may not like the history of the team. Hell, they haven't won a Super Bowl since 1988. So at the end of the day, he has been very loyal to his coaches and his clients. So Mike McCarthy will surface somewhere, I think, pretty doggone quickly.
Wait, 1988? No, the Cowboys won the Super Bowls in the mid-early 90s, right? That was the Troy Aikman run.
Oh, right. I thought it was 1988. Maybe I'm wrong, but they haven't won in a long time.
Yeah, maybe wasn't that the Washington Redskins with Doug Williams was around 1988.
Yep. Okay. So that's all things as it relates to the coaching carousel. Feel free to jump on board in Fans Forum. Give us an opinion if you want there. Hey, we get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. John and I have always debated, what color paint should we use on the walls in the newly constructed studios? And I'm colorblind. He said, I'm not letting you make any choices. And John, I've seen your man cave. I don't think I'm going to let you. So we're just going to let Dixie Line give us some ideas as to how to do shelvings and curtains and windows and all that in the brand new studios. But that's who Dixie Line is.
Yeah, that is who they are, and they'll help you interior with your home, paint. Their paint department's fantastic. They got everything you need there. They'll mix it for you, the whole thing.
Even for colorblind dummies.
Even for colorblind dummies like yourself, so yeah, all good. And, our friends at Dixie Line right now, they help build San Diego 100 years ago. They've been in town forever. And right now they're working with a lot of the people in Southern California with the fires, because they provide a lot of the resources that will help LA build again. So if it's not Dixie Line Lumber, it's their parent company, Builders First Source.
So you got projects, they've got ideas, they got materials. I'll be glad to help you. Go to the website. Just check out what they have to offer. You'll probably learn something you didn't know. DixieLine.com. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, plus the new one up in Dana Point, because been in business for 100 years. Couple of program notes. When we are done with this podcast, bingo, Fans Forum. John, just walk people through how Fans Forum works.
Walk them through. Okay, take a walk with me. Yeah, this is real easy. Just type in your question or comment in the live stream in Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved. I just want to read off some of the names that are already in. We got Dave, Brandon, Chris, Leonardo, Steve, GS619, Willie, Gary, Force Ghost, Gary, John, Greg, Callan, Kalani, Raul, JDS third. I mean, we're going to try to get you all in here, in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines, coming up very shortly.
And if you like sports, please read my website. I write on it every day. It's there first thing in the morning. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me what you like or dislike about my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Fill out the orange box. Join us, part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You're on social media. I'm on social media. Become one of my followers. Join me on the Twitter All-Star team on X. Just go to Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. Want you to share. Tell everybody in your address book that we are on the air with this podcast. We do sports talk the way it should be done. Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Tell all your friends about that. And we want you to subscribe. When you subscribe, then you get all the alerts that we put up on our YouTube channel. We do a lot of stuff during the course of the week, in addition to the award-winning podcast. So we go a lot of different directions. John has put us on every bloody social media platform there is. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, you're blowing up on Instagram. We're almost up to 20,000 followers on Instagram. We're getting we're having a huge surge of video views on YouTube right now. So all good, man. Keep it rolling.
Okay, we move to the second half. This podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. More topics on the table vis-a-vis NFL.
The NFL notebooks kick it off here with the Browns.
Oh, this is awful. This story just does never, ever get better. We're talking about what happened to Deshaun Watson. Recovering from torn Achilles surgery, re-tears the Achilles. He's effectively done for 2025. They are stuck with this contract. Insurance policy will probably cover most of it. At the end of the day, second surgery, I think his career is probably very much over. What a disaster from what was such a promising quarterback who came out of Clemson University, did things for the Houston Texans, and then just fell apart. The Browns, as bad a season as it was, wind up with a second pick in the draft, and it looks as if they're going to take Shedeur Sanders. So the Browns fans have to be feeling a little bit better with that. Tennessee burned a #1 draft pick 2 years ago on Will Levis from the University of Kentucky. Had a really good rookie season. Second year just regressed. He got hurt, came back, made a lot of mistakes, threw a lot of interceptions. Not good at all. It looks as if they're going to take Cam Ward with the second pick. With the first pick in the draft. Tennessee would draft 1, take Cam Ward. Browns would take Shedeur Sanders at #2. New name has pushed himself into the first round of the draft board. You and I had talked about Kyle McLeod from Syracuse.
Oh, yeah.
He's filed to go to the NFL. The mid-first round pick. He threw for 4,779 yards and 34 touchdowns this season with the Syracuse Orange. put on a dazzling show here at the Holiday Bowl. I don't know that he is the stud that Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward is, but the guy can fling the football. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. So he's now positioned himself to be maybe middle of the first round of the draft. And this is kind of a late year for quarterbacks in the draft. And the last topic there is at Colorado. They're saying goodbye to one of the great coaches. What an influence Bill McCartney was. He rallied this Colorado Buffaloes program. He's passed away at the age of 84 because of dementia. Buffs legend. He went 93, 55, and 5 in Boulder. He had inherited a program that had been down for 25 years, and he rebuilt it. 3 Big 8 titles with Colorado football, 9 bowl wins, and 1 NCAA championship ring. And he built it with Southern California kids. You remember the name Sal Onisi. That was the first great quarterback at Colorado, modern day McCartney era. He was a kid from Vista. Sadly, he passed away from cancer at such a young age. Sal Onisi was the trigger guy. Eric Bieniemy was his star running back. Mike Pritchard, wide receiver, illustrious career there. Obviously, Bieniemy, Pritchard, and many others went on to the National Football League. All came out of the McCartney playbook. So Bill McCartney, very well-regarded man, leader, teacher. I was surprised when he stepped away from Colorado. He didn't go somewhere else. But again, phenomenal job. He just passed away early on the weekend up in Boulder. So you got football to talk about. These quarterbacks, what do you think?
Well, first I want to talk about Colorado, if you don't mind. But I think McCartney, he went on, he was doing some kind of a religious thing for a while. So that probably took him off the football track. But what about Cordell Stewart and Rashad Salam? Were they there during that same era?
Yeah, I think they were towards the end, towards the tail end. And Cordell was kind of a unique fit. Cordell was more explosive than Sal Onisi. Cordell went to the NFL, defined role. Pittsburgh, I thought, played pretty well, but he was a run-type quarterback who could throw, but running quarterbacks get hurt, get knocked out. So his career was kind of shortchanged along the way. But his influence on college football and what he did in the Big 8, because the Big 8 was owned, operated, and mandated by Oklahoma and Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly.
And here came Bill McCartney on the Colorado Buffaloes. I mean, yeah, they're really excited about Deion Sanders and everything they've done in the last 24 months in Boulder. What he did was to pick a program up by the bootstraps that had been down forever in a conference owned by other people and really make it something.
Yeah. I remember that when they came up. You're right. It was Nebraska, Oklahoma, and all of a sudden Colorado. What the hell? The Cleveland Browns, how long has it been since they've had like a good quarterback, a stable quarterback, a Bernie Kosar, Brian Sipe kind of guy? It's been forever.
Yeah, it's been few and far between. In the 40 years since, not 40 years, since 1999, when the Browns expansion team was put back in place to replace the Art Modell team that had moved to Baltimore. Since 1999, they have had 40 different starting quarterbacks. 40.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Have you seen like people with the jersey with all the names crossed out, and you see like Eric Couch on that list and a bunch of guys. I mean, it's been so long. I wonder if Shedeur is looking like he might go to Cleveland, do you think, Deion would say, kind of like the Manning family, kept Eli away from San Diego. He says, I don't want my son playing for the Browns.
Nah, at this point, no. The kid wants a chance to play. Kid's going to make big money if he's a second pick in the draft. So why not Cleveland? They've got a good team, but they've had injury problems at both offensive tackles, and the running back Nick Chubb's had 2 major injuries, and the defense has had injuries, but the potential is still there. And Kevin Stefanski, despite how horrible last season was, is a good offensive mind. He's 2-time coach of the year. So if Shedeur wins there, but they've been beset by so many problems. They drafted Tim Couch, who was at Kentucky. He was a big throwing quarterback. He was that first pick in 1999 when the franchise was coming back. And he had the quarterback syndrome. High draft pick, bad club, get your brains beat out. Yeah. He never survived all the different injuries he had. And they've just gone on and on and on. 40 different starting quarterbacks since 1999. I've never seen anything like that. It pales in comparison to what they used to have, which was greatness. They, used to have Bernie Kosar. And they used to have, way back in the day, a guy that won them a championship, Frank Ryan, a Yale graduate, back when they won their only NFL championship. I think it was 1964.
So your career brought you to Cleveland.
Sure.
You know, what era of Browns football were you in Cleveland?
Just wrapped around the arrival of Sipe and Sam Rutigliano as the coach and the Cardiac Kids. But that was short, and they were never able to capitalize on it and then build on it very long. Kozar was tremendous. Kozar took a lot of hits. Kozar's career kind of ended prematurely. But Browns football, it is beloved in Cleveland. Holy cow, they are more passionate about that than they are the baseball Cleveland Indians, Guardians, or even the Cleveland Cavaliers. But they've been down for a long time. So it'll be interesting. If Shedeur winds up there, and now because of what just happened with Watson, everybody thinks this is going to be a great acquisition. And maybe he's the trigger point, and they're going to rally this thing quicker than anybody expects.
Are the Browns going to move their stadium? What's up with there?
That's in the middle of politics. That is so deeply ensconced in litigation. They're trying to build the Dome Stadium 8 miles from downtown Cleveland in the industrial district of Brook Park, just southeast of Cleveland. But it is so tied up because when they put the expansion team in there was an agreement called the Modell Law that nobody could take the franchise out of that new stadium they built. And yet Jim Haslam is trying to take it out of that stadium that was built.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's another topic for another day. Okay, we move on.
Okay, let's go to the Major League Baseball. Like, you got Scrooge here on the list.
Oh, my goodness. Let's talk about what's happening in Major League Baseball. Payrolls, last-minute deals. Padres issue. As of noon today, Padres payroll is $208 million. You know, that includes what they just agreed to with Luis Ariz and Dylan Cease. They have yet to solve the Michael King problem. He's going to arbitration. He's asking for $8.8 million. Agents are not taking pitchers into multi-year deals. It's like every agent now wants to take his guy to free agency that next year. Michael King is going to probably go to free agency just to see what the payday is going to be like. The burning question, the Padres now have cost certainty as to what it would cost somebody to take Ariz in a trade or take Cease in a trade. So that means if they call the Yankees back, the Yankees know for Ariz it'd be $14 million. Question is, what do the Padres get back? I hear Clark Schmidt, one of their mid-level rotation guys, kind of like a Michael King, and I hear Jason Dominguez. I also hear some of their young infielders. Do they dare trade Dylan Cease? Because you've already lost Joe Musgrove, and if you trade Dylan Cease, please tell me who is going to be in your rotation after Darvish and after Michael King. That's a big issue because I don't think you can use Randy Vasquez, Matt Waldron, Johnny Brito, and say, oh, we'll be in a pennant race with those guys to start as 3, 4, and 5. So I don't know if they can do that. Here's a story that just broke in the early hours today. I don't understand the rationale. Maybe this is the front end of something else. Why would you shop Robert Suarez?
Oh, yeah.
Affordable $10 million a year contract. Why would you trade him now when you've openly attempted to trade Ariz and Dylan Cease? But that's out there. And the Jake Cronenworth thing is out there again. Trade that's $70 million that's owed. Problem is, if you were to trade Suarez, you create a hole in the bullpen. If you trade Cronenworth, one of your infielders gone. And if you have to pay some of the money to have somebody take those guys, how does it really value you? And, you know, as we sit here at lunchtime, they still need another starting pitcher. They need a left fielder. They need a catcher. And the bench bunch has to be filled out. I mean, they're painted into a really tough corner because of the contracts that A.J. Preller gave out to all those star players. They're all unmovable contracts. And then you got the whole Sasaki thing. As the ownership situation, which spilled out into the streets last week, the quote, civil war, is that going to scare Sasaki away? Here's the latest on Sasaki. He was in Toronto. He paid a visit to Toronto. Everybody else who met with him went to L.A. and met in the agent's office. Sasaki came back from Japan with his agent, Joel Wolf, went to Toronto to meet the Blue Jays in person. It's the only place he's made an in-person visit.
Interesting.
I don't know whether Toronto is a finalist. There's also a report at this hour that Sasaki's people have told the Giants they're out, that they're not going to be part of it. And there's also another report that Texas may have been told they're not going to be a finalist either. Sasaki can sign on Wednesday. That's the first day he can sign on the 15th. He has from the 15th to the 23rd to actually put his name on the paper. So that's the latest with the Padres. Dodgers. We talked about this. The Dodgers, by making virtue of all these trades in which they got international pool money as part of the transactions or international draft picks, the Dodgers have $10.7 million to use in the international pool. Move it to the front of the table to Sasaki. Most everybody else is in the 5 to 6 to 7 million range. The Dodgers got 10.1. Evidently, the Dodgers have revisited with Jack Flaherty. He is still out there. Supposedly, they're willing to go 1 year, $15 million. They're not going to give him 5. Nobody's giving him 5. That's why he's still out there. But they want Flaherty to be able to prove that he can stay healthy for another calendar year, because his history has always been about different injuries. Again, Dodger payroll, money is no object.
Right.
Scrooge is not any part of their sentences. So Flaherty might be out there still in the hunt for the Dodgers, though Flaherty is still talking to other teams. Angels, Peter Alonso, Mets. There evidently was a conversation about a 2-year, $50 million deal, $25 million per season. It was rejected. Now, I don't know whether the Angels rejected it or Alonso's people, Scott Boras, rejected it. Boras wants Alonso to get the max he can. 31.1 million is what people project. Well, he's not getting the max if he goes to Anaheim at 2 years, 25 per season. Why would the Angels do that? Why would the Angels give Alonso 2 years, 25 mil with an opt-out after the first year? And they have to give up 2 draft picks to sign Alonso because he was given a qualifying offer by the Mets, turned it down. So immediately it's draft pick compensation. Why would you sign Alonso for a 2-year deal with the risk he could opt out after 1 year and you lose draft picks too?
Right.
Makes no sense at all. The latest thing with Alonso is he's gone back to the Mets and he's made a one-time offer to the Mets. Give me 3 years, 31 million per, 3 years, 90. That'll give me the average value that the agent wants. You keep the power hitting first baseman. But by the way, you got to give me an opt-out after the first and second year. Mets have not responded there. So a lot of machinations right now. Who's proposing what to whom? Alonso would be great for the Angels, but I'm not giving up two draft picks as compensation with a risk I might only get him for 1 year. It makes no sense to me at all. We'll see if the Mets pick him up on this 3-year deal with opt-outs after the first and second year. So, John, this is just about not, here's my contract, John, sign it. This is about all these clauses in the contract that change the whole structure of your budget, your payroll, and your team.
Doesn't it feel like Alonso would prefer to be in New York? You know, that's he's got the love there. You know, they're all there for the polar bear. It seems like they're just sort of playing with Artie Moreno, just using him as a like a competitive offer that they can pivot off of. I just don't see Alonso really going to Angels. And to your point, in a team that's desperate for prospects, why would you give up your draft picks? That would make no sense at all.
You know, and the other factor is Alonso in his last 2 years is at 229. Yeah, he's hit 80 home runs, but he's hit 229. So even if you were to get him for 3 guaranteed years, what kind of player are you actually getting? Big.
Well, he's become like Dave Kingman, sort of, hasn't he? You know, just he'll hit the bomb, he'll strike out, and he's not getting on base.
So all things baseball, feel free. Are you alarmed at where the Padres are? What do you think about Sasaki now with this change of venue and the decision to go to Toronto and meet with the Jays? Any Angel fans out there? There's got to be somebody from New York who's got an opinion here. Join us in Fans Forum in the chat box right now.
Hey, I want to talk about the Padres and Dodgers real quick. So it's ridiculous that the Padres didn't work a deal with Michael King. You know, you don't want to put that guy out to arbitration. That's a guy that you want to hang on to. But, you know, it doesn't bother me at all that AJ Preller is talking about Suarez. I mean, they're just trying to get some conversations going to see who might be able to do a creative deal with them. And as far as the Dodgers are concerned, I mean, they look like the likely place for Roki Sasaki to land. I mean, how could they not land there? But, there's a lot of people that have questioned you about the conditional, the international pool money and whether it was tradable and what that deal with Gavin Lux really was with the Cincinnati Reds. So it's all very confusing to me.
The international set of rules is different than normal draft. You can't trade normal draft picks, but you can trade slot money within the draft pool. You can trade international pool money. And that's what the Dodgers did. By trading Gavin Lux, they got a Reds draft pick. That draft pick has a dollar value attached to it. It's $2.5 million.
That's the conditional draft pick that people are talking about.
Yes. So the Dodgers had $2.5 million left from last year. That money carries over. $2.5 million for the Gavin Lux draft pick. That goes into the pool. So that's $5 million total, plus what they already had, which was $5.7 million for this year. So it adds up to 10.7 total in their international pool.
See, I get that. 10 point, the math adds up. But some people are questioning whether or not international dollars are transferable. Like you can take your surplus from the previous year and move it to the new year.
I believe you can.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
I wasn't good in new math, but that's what I read.
Well, if everything you say is right, then yeah, the Dodgers are bleeping brilliant because they'll probably get Sasaki for sure.
And you can trade for international money. There's a cap as to how much international money you can get from another club. But every draft pick has a dollar value assigned to it. And by getting the Gavin Lux trade for a draft pick, that becomes dollars.
Interesting. All right. Okay.
I just telling you what I know, what I hear, what people tell me. We go from that. We got hoops to talk about too.
Yeah, we do. NBA and college ball. That San Diego State loss, that was a whooping.
They went to New Mexico and they got the doors blown off. I guess the only words I can use to describe what happened to San Diego State, teachable moment, John. Teachable moment. Blowout. Scored 20 points first half. When the hell did San Diego State ever score 20 points in the first half? Down by 10. Suddenly it was down by 21 in the second half. I was impressed by New Mexico. Aztecs got ambushed by Lobo aggressiveness. New Mexico pushed the ball, the tempo, went to the basket, took shots. Aztec bigs seemed to be a step slow or just looked like they were overwhelmed. A lot of ticky-tack fouls. Aztec guards got mugged along the way. San Diego State gave up 50 rebounds in the game. They were outboarded 50-35. 19 fouls, 19 turnovers. Aztecs just never drove to the rim. Their offense wasn't running downhill. The young players, there's so many new players there. And you and I talked about this last Thursday. These kids walking down that tunnel into the pit, that's a lifetime experience. They didn't deal with the noise, the physicality, the altitude, the crowd. Now, I guess I'll pose this question, Mr. Basketball. Who really is San Diego State at this juncture? Because they did blow an 18-point lead at home and lost to Utah State. They did allow Air Force to outscore them 18-2 at home. And then they get their doors blown off here in Albuquerque. So you tell me, do we really know who they are right now? Or is that just a one-time bad day at the office?
No, they're just young, and they can't handle the pressure. You go into the pit. I mean, that's like the Super Bowl for Albuquerque when San Diego State comes to town. So it's a lot of pressure on these young kids. And then even like Miles Heide, granted, he's not one of the core guys, but he was coming off his illness and he was a step or two slow. There were a lot of things going on in this game. You just got to chalk it up. I mean, it's a tough conference to win on the road.
So you do agree with me, teachable moment.
It has to be because it's young kids. I mean, this roster has very few seniors, and Reese Waters, probably their most experienced player, isn't playing at all.
Okay, we go from Aztec basketball. You got an opinion on that? Fans forum, chat box is open. Miami Heat. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of the week. The Jimmy Butler 7-game suspension effectively ends. They're going to allow him to come back to practice. They're going to allow him to put the uniform back on. They're going to allow all the same crap to continue that's continued for the last year and a half. Report out of Miami, Pat Riley filed a 10-page document with the NBA with all the incidents of insubordination involving Jimmy Butler over the last 3 years. Injuries, mental health issues, work habits, locker room explosions, just total deportment. And Pat Riley told the media, Jimmy Butler has to honor his contract. Jimmy Butler cannot be a distraction. Jimmy Butler has to be available. In essence, saying, Jimmy Butler, you owe us. And by the way, Jimmy Butler has acted. This guy's put his whole career and his earning power in jeopardy. Yeah, he's got $45 million left on this year, and he's got an option for 52, and they can't trade him because nobody wants to touch him because he's toxic. So it's a strange scenario. See what happens by the time we get to Friday. Does Miami want this player back? Is Miami willing to put up with more crap from this player? Because that's all that guy's gotten himself involved in, despite the greatness of what he used to be once upon a time. Golden State, you're having a rocky season, real tough season. There's a confidence issue there. They're trying to fight the right mixing chemistry. And just this terrible situation with the fire. Steve Kerr's historic family home destroyed. All the possessions. His mother lived in the house. Gone. She got out at age 90. Just terrible. You know, you think about Steve Kerr, great coach, unbelievable player, so well respected, but his life's been stalked by tragedy. You know, his father was killed in the Middle East in a bombing incident. And now obviously he's lost his family home. Lakers, on the court, one thing, J.J. Redick lost his family home in the Pacific Palisades area, lost all of his possessions. And a home they just moved into, they were renting while the new home was being built. J.J. Redick had tears in his eyes when he talked about the experience at the end of the week. He drove into the village of the Palisades. The village was gone. He could not believe what he was seeing. And then he drove to his neighborhood, and he was not ready to see where the house I lived in, where the church I went to, where the school my kids were going to, were all in embers. So he was very, very emotional. One other side note as it relates to the fires, and we talked about the fact that the 8 teams in Los Angeles at noon today announced they were donating $8 million to LA fire relief. LA Kings played in Winnipeg the other night. Kings are on a long road trip. And everybody across the National Hockey League did a ceremony at center ice while they were playing "O Canada" and the national anthem. A moment of silence for the victims in Los Angeles. It was really, really neat to see. Canadians, etc., and all the Canadian and Mexican fire departments have arrived in Southern California, and they're helping in the firefight. I was amazed. The LA Kings lined up on the blue line for the game in Winnipeg, and they did the anthems, and they had this moment of silence and salute, and they had close-up shots. Kings players were weeping.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Very, very tough to see what we're seeing. But, you know, you think of the athletes, and they all make money, and they all live in a glory times, and they're all really special, but they're humans. I mean, I can't imagine how hard it'd be for Steve Kerr to lose every possession, or J.J. Redick to lose everything his family had in a home fire like this. It just happens so quickly. Tough time.
It is. Yeah. And to your point, these athletes are human. You know, Steve Kerr, you brought up his father. I mean, he's had a really interesting, life.
Dynamic person.
Because I think he was a student at U of A playing basketball when his father, was it at the American University in Beirut?
Mm-hmm.
And, guys, his father's there trying to do good things, and then he ends up getting killed. Now they're losing his family home. It's just tragic. It's just awful. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about the fire, and it's not calming down. It's going to keep rolling.
Yeah. So that's where we are. Those are topics on the table. You got opinions? We got answers. You got a statement to make? We're ready to see what you've got to say. Feel free to join us. Fans Forum chat box is now open. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects for 2025. Just go to their website. That's the best way to introduce yourself to Dixie Line, DixieLine.com. See all the things they can offer. You want ideas? You need materials? Go where we did business. They're going to help John paint this new studio. because I'm colorblind and I'm terrible when it comes to color coordination, as you can see by me, the way I dress. But at the end of the day, Dixie Line Lumber, they got things to help you, can be your best friend.
They do.
John, where we going?
Okay, let's start with Chris. This is a newbie here for the Fans Forum. He says Spanos is the death nail for the Chargers.
I root for Justin Herbert to go 17-0. Root for Dean Spanos to go 0-17. That's on me. I understand it. That was a terrible loss. That coaching staff let that quarterback down. That quarterback got no help. That quarterback freaked out. He panicked. It was the worst game I've ever seen Justin Herbert play in the NFL, and he's had 5 years of tremendous statistics. They learned from that, but they need more help. They obviously, and John and I talked a lot during the course of the Chargers season because we cover it because this team was still very popular and beloved here, and I was the voice of the Chargers. So yeah, we cover it. But I said all along, they got 3 number 1 draft picks in the offensive line. This thing's going to get better. Well, they didn't get better. Those guys let that quarterback get battered during the course of the season. I'm going to go back and do a statistical check of how many hits, how many pressures he faced on top of how many sacks he took. And yet he was completing 68% of his passes. So tough loss. It's a team loss. It's everybody, including the offensive and defensive coordinator too.
Yeah, doing this podcast with you, I'm getting sucked back into the Chargers, right? Because I had broken up with my girlfriend and I was ready to say goodbye to the Chargers. And I'm getting sucked back in, and now I keep getting these disappointing days after these terrible losses. But wasn't this year supposed to be a rebuild? Weren't they like 5-12 last year?
It was 5-12 last year, but this was a step forward with more players, with a new leadership, new philosophy. Harbaugh changed the culture. But at the end of the day, the players still have to do it on the field. And that quarterback couldn't do it by himself without a running game. That quarterback couldn't do it when he had people in his face, people at his feet, when his arm was getting hit because the pass protection was crap. And it couldn't run the damn football at all. And on the defensive side of the football, when Houston was done, they had pounded their way to this victory. So it's the same old, same old.
But you were praising the Denver Broncos, for getting back to the playoffs. Granted, they lost in the first round. They had the innovative coach. They've got the bright light young quarterback, and they lost. You praised the Broncos, but we criticized the Chargers.
I praised the Broncos because they came from absolute ground zero to win 9. And it did it with a raw rookie quarterback and not a great team, but they got collectively better and better and better as they went. Chargers didn't. You must disagree with my theory. Who the hell did you beat? You don't buy what I said, that they didn't beat anybody. When they play good people, they got punched in the mouth 7 times.
Yeah, well, you like to keep bringing that up throughout
but
the
it's
whole
true.
Because it is true.
Okay,
and I think you proved your point. Like I said,
stop arguing.
Yeah,
with me.
you're gonna say I told you so. That's what this is all about. Okay, let's keep moving on. Let's go here to Alan. He goes, "Where's Profar going to land?"
Well, the price tag has to come down. Hell, maybe it's going to go to spring training. We're 4 weeks out from the start of spring training, John. And he's got to take a contract that's going to pay him well. Hell, $5 million or $8 million? That's what he's worth to me. Scott Boras is asking $15 million per year for 3 years for Profar. No. But because of the relationship with Preller, price tag will come down and maybe he'll be ready to go, and maybe he'll get $5 million to be my left fielder in San Diego for another year. He's not getting it anywhere else, because if it was, he would have been signed. And virtually everybody, all the marquee guys are coming off the board.
Yeah, Profar had a great run last year, but he's not a marquee guy, right? And so, but you said that the payroll now for the Padres is now at what, 208?
208. And that's without Michael King, without Profar, without Kim. And if you're trying to keep any of those guys, that's going to add to the 208, which means multiples may have to leave.
Yeah. So under that circumstance, I can't see them paying Profar unless they get him for another $1 million a year deal.
Well, unless they're going to execute a trade and Arise goes to the Yankees, or Cronenworth gets traded. Somebody's, 1 or 2 have to exit here to knock this payroll down so they could afford to bring Profar in at $5 million or maybe $8 million. And they still have to pay Michael King,
right,
which is going to be $8 million. So in essence, the payroll is 208 now. Add King on, because he's arbitration eligible. So that takes you to at least to 216. And if you're going to add Profar, say that's $5 million. So that's 221. If you go back to Kim on a contract. Maybe that's the 8 that he was supposed to get. That's up to 229. You're going in the wrong direction.
Well, when does the luxury tax kick in?
It's kicked in at the end of the season when they accumulate who's left on the roster.
Right, but at what dollar amount though? When does it? Is it like at 235, 240?
241 is the luxury tax kick in. But remember, the payroll is one thing, but then you have benefits for every player that's on the payroll.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, the total compensation is more than just the payroll.
Yeah. You know, the Padres right now, their tax number for contracts is 208, but their collective tax, which includes benefits, is already at 244, which is over the threshold of 241.
Oh, yeah.
And they still got holes to fill.
Yeah. I think I can confidently say the Padres will not go over the salary cap penalty. Right? I mean,
but you can confidently then say somebody's leaving. Multiple guys are leaving.
That's true. I think that's going to happen.
Very complicated thing. So they got 4 weeks to configure what the roster should look like. Profar might be part of it, but trust me, somebody's exiting or multiple players are exiting. And I don't want to ruin your day, but are you aware that they still owe Eric Hosmer almost $13 million on the final year?
Yes, the final year. Yeah.
That's $13 million they could have been using towards another player. I'm sorry, Preller has made a lot of bad business decisions.
Yeah, yeah. But, look where we came from. I mean, we had nothing, 10 years ago.
Look where we are.
Yeah, they made huge progress. And I think he had to take some risks. And you're right. Some of those contracts were total duds. And people warned everyone that when Preller signed Hosmer, that he wasn't worth it because people had done all the analytics and his WAR was like around 0.
Tough situation. We're not home free yet by any stretch. Next question.
Okay, here, let's go to Force Ghost Fabio. Is Reese Waters getting a medical red shirt? Season is half over.
Well, he's trying to get ready to go back to practice, but who knows how the foot reacts once he gets back to practice. It's a burning question. He can then apply for a medical red shirt at the collective end of the season, and maybe he will do that. Does he want to stay in college another year? It's a big issue. This injury thing has been much more complex than anybody realized. Everybody thought he'd be back in December, and we are into almost to mid-January, and he hasn't practiced yet.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back, because the season is over half over, isn't it? Or close to that. And this is not the way he's going to want to go out. I've heard people say that while the Aztecs are, they're young now, next year's Aztec team could be really good. And imagine if Reese Waters stuck around for that. But I don't know. Miles Bird might go in the NBA draft. Do you think that's possible?
I think anything can change, and transfer portal can change everything and anything too. So, Reese Waters has got to do what's good for Reese Waters. He's got to get healthy. He's got to get medical clearance, actually practice, get on the floor. Then we have to see how his foot reacts once he practices, and then game conditioning. It's not like he can go play a game in the Mountain West with the snap of the fingers with 2 practices.
And then you got like just a handful of games in February, and then it's March.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a short run.
We'll keep track of that. Thanks, Force.
Okay, let's go to Chris. Hey, with Mike McCarthy out in Dallas, sadly, the Chicago Bears will make him their new coach. Ryan Poles, who inexplicably is still employed, will never hire Ben Johnson since he wants to bring his own GM wherever he accepts the head coach job. The definition of average retread McCarthy will guide Caleb Williams absolutely nowhere. Reaction.
Well, but you're not giving McCarthy any credit for the development of quarterbacks in Green Bay. He was part of that whole thing vis-a-vis Favre, and then obviously what happened with the development of fast track of Aaron Rodgers. So I wouldn't say that he's a lost soul out there. I think the guy's got a good track record. He's won 174 games in the NFL. Chris, that's a pretty good coaching job in the National Football League. So we'll see. We'll see if Chicago will hire the Detroit guru, or does the Detroit guru want to stay in Detroit because he's not going to be allowed to bring his own guy? That's a question worth looking at. But you got Jacksonville out there with Trevor Lawrence, and they really need leadership. And obviously you got New Orleans with the veteran quarterback Derek Carr. So Mike McCarthy's going to have his choice of places to go.
Yeah. Someone will pick him up, but if you're Dallas, would you hang on to Mike McCarthy, or are one of these bright lights maybe a better choice? Would you rather have a Ben Johnson than a Mike McCarthy?
Jerry Jones has always been a guy about veteran coaches with lots of experience. I don't understand why he would make Mike McCarthy a 1-year offer. if he fears this thing is in free fall, well, then you make the change and you get new leadership and you got to get some good luck and get all these injured players back healthy. But McCarthy was an accomplishment. So why would you get rid of an accomplishment unless you want a Cliff Kingsbury or you want some other hot coordinator? So Jerry's always done business the way Jerry wants to do business. And with apologies to you, John, he's just not going to apologize to you about anything.
Well, remember, halfway through the season, we were certain that McCarthy was going to be out.
Yep.
Then he started winning, and everyone rallied around him. And then they said, no, you're out.
He won 4 or 5 with a backup quarterback and no defense. And then, of course, it caught up to him at the end of the season. So it's weird. I would bet McCarthy's going to have a job by 1st of February.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's keep on going. We'll go here to GS619. He goes, Herbert is terrible at the line. Missed easy pass protections. Throwing a ball 100 miles an hour to a guy 10 yards away has got to improve.
Well, he completed 68% of his passes. He runs out of trouble because he's so fast and he's got such a long stride. I think he's a good quarterback, and he just needs better people around him. I was dismayed at how poor that offensive line played in front of him for a lot of the course of this season. And I am the lone wolf standing on the street corner. I'm the one that said, yeah, you won 11 games, but who the hell did you beat? Because when they play good people, they got smoked. But this demise is not on Justin Herbert. This demise is on everything around Justin Herbert and these coaches that I don't think did a good job scheming to try to help Justin Herbert. They knew how good Houston's defense was. Hell, if talk show host in San Diego who looked at video said, holy crap, you're going to have to deal with Danielle Hunter, the pass rusher, and you got to deal with Will Anderson, and you come up with a game plan and those two guys go crazy against your offensive line, well, you as a coach haven't done a good job in terms of scheming to protect that guy. And even if things are bumpy during the course of a game, you can change what you're doing schematically. You can put tight ends in and H-backs in to help pass block the guys out on the edge. And Hunter and Will Anderson just went crazy in that game. So, Justin Herbert throwing 4 picks, taking 4 sacks. He took 11 hits and 7 pressures. He had guys in his face, guys on his arms, guys hitting him, guys at his feet, nowhere to stride. That's why 2 of the passes were wobbly and high, because he's trying to get it out of there and he couldn't make his full stride to make the delivery. So I'm sorry. This is less on Justin Herbert. It's more on everything around Justin Herbert, including those coaches up in the box.
Justin Herbert is the golden child. He can do no wrong. During the season, he went on a streak of so many games without interceptions, and then he has 4 in one day.
Yeah, but he also went through a streak in which they didn't score a hell of a lot of games. And there are a bunch of second halves where their offense totally disappeared. But that, again, is lack of run game.
But, that's on the quarterback, too. I mean, the blame – Justin Herbert should not be immune to the blame. I think he deserves part of it. But Disley's got to catch the damn ball. So does Quentin Johnston. Got to catch the damn ball to make this whole thing work. But just as an aside, the game was in Houston. Number one, do you think the Texans can advance any further? And what's the story with that glare in the stadium, like through the window of the roof? It was kind of weird.
Yeah, put the curtains up, please.
Yeah.
I mean, it was tough. And watch that first quarter till that sun relocated. But they had the same glare in Dallas, at Jerry's house. They got this exact same thing with the receivers running crossing patterns, looking back or looking at sun coming into their face. Put the curtains up. But so you're divesting yourself of support of Justin Herbert now. It's you're bagging on him.
I used to think of, Justin Herbert, I would thought of him in the beginning like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and all the other elite quarterbacks, the kid in with the Bengals. But now I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe he's not like the top level. Maybe he's the second level, or maybe even the third level. Because, you could argue Baker Mayfield had a great year. You think of him as not one of the elite quarterbacks, but maybe Baker Mayfield had a better year than Justin Herbert.
Sammy on social media condemning the Charger quarterback over here. My partner in crime. You got a different opinion, feel free to express it. Fans forum, we move on.
Okay, let's go here to Willie. And he says, hey, is the fire near your studio? Stay safe.
Not yet, but we have red flag warnings in San Diego, and it's coming up at about 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon that we're prepared again. I'm sorry. It's great to live here, but I hate this. I cannot handle this. And again, I speak from experience because we got burned out in 2007. My whole neighborhood in Rancho Bernardo burned to the ground. My house got damaged. Somehow it survived. I don't know how it survived. I've told John the story about having 12 minutes to get out of my house at 4:30 in the morning because the fire had changed direction and it jumped the freeway and was right on my street. And 13 of the 16 houses on my street burned to the ground. Cars burned in their place. I was the last one out of my neighborhood at 4:30 in the morning. And I got burned. You never, ever forget that trauma. That's why when I speak about what's going on up there at Pacific Palisades in Malibu, I get so emotional because I get flashbacks to what happened. But so if we can get through Wednesday, and I know we have a lot of out-of-town viewers here on live stream. If we can get through Wednesday, maybe we'll be okay. But send rain. Please send rain. We've had no rain since May.
Yeah, but California goes through these droughts, and then one year we'll get a deluge. It's wacky here. But yeah, it's a tough go up in LA. Hopefully they can get this thing under control.
Okay, we move on. Thanks for the thought.
Okay, let's move on here to Gary. More Herbert talk. He goes, Herbert is a good quarterback, but I question whether he's a top 10 NFL quarterback. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Also, the Chargers are 2 or 3 really good players away from being a legit championship contender.
You know, it's interesting. Joe Alt had a really consistent, rock-solid season. He was miserable in this game in Houston. He just got beat, and he got beat, and he got beat. He got beat off the ball, run blocking. He got beat in protection, and everybody got beat in protection. They got a weak link at center. They're going to have to make a change at center. They probably need another right guard. They need somebody different. But that's why you got draft picks, and that's why Joe Ortiz has a good track record as a player personnel guy. And I'd always said they're probably one more draft away from really being upper echelon. But boy, was a terrible way to end a season. I never would have thought it would have been that. Because when we did our preview on Thursday, John, I thought they had a legitimate chance to win against the Houston Texans because the Texans are not the same team. Texans went 4-5 the back half of the schedule, and they were really struggling. They had a lot of injuries at wide receiver. But boy, they just came out of that tunnel, and they just got progressively better and better and better. And the Chargers had the chance to bury them early and couldn't bury them because Houston's defense just kept ratcheting it up further.
That's right. Yeah, in the beginning of the game, the Chargers had all those opportunities, and they just have to settle for a field goal or something dumb like that. This was just such classic chargering. The whole thing. It was just a disgrace, the entire game. And I don't know. It just makes you wonder, is there a curse on this team? I mean, they've blown it so many times.
It puts a pall over the whole season, and it puts a pall over, I'm sorry. I'm not going to believe this tent revival speech any longer from Harbaugh. You know, you got to do it. So I think he's got assistant coaching issues that I question. Obviously he's got player personnel issues by what happened in and around Justin Herbert. I don't think he's got a quarterback issue, but maybe I'm in the minority. But boy, what a disgusting, disappointing end of the season. To quote John Riley, again and again and again.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so if you're the GM for the Chargers, what are you drafting for first? What position?
Well, got to find out whether Khalil Mack is going to walk away from the game, because he said today he is seriously contemplating retirement after 11 years of wear and tear. What are you going to do about Bosa's contract? I'm sorry, Bosa's not a $30 million a year pass rusher. What are you doing? I think they got to fix the offensive line. I think they need legitimacy at center. They probably need a right guard, and they may have to go to the marketplace and go find another wide receiver, because as good as Quentin Johnston was against the woe-begone Raiders 2 weeks ago when he had 13 catches, what do you do on Saturday? Drop.
Yeah.
Couldn't get free in coverage. Drop. So he's got probably 1 year left to prove that he can be what he is athletically and be that way on the field week by week. I think of Quentin Johnston and his size and his ability to run and all that, and comparing to Mike Evans. The hell Mike Evans do in Tampa Bay on Sunday night? He caught everything in the stadium with all kinds of guys around him.
That dude's a pro.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Can you say superstar?
Yeah.
And we got this guy he's got more drops than he's got big catches.
Yeah, my take on him is he's always thinking about turning and running upfield before he catches the ball. But it just goes to show you how good Lad McConkey is, isn't he? I mean,
what a gamer.
That kid is just, I mean, it's always like that little slot receiver, that does great things in the NFL.
And that's a prime example of Ortiz as a player personnel guy. He went and found that guy.
There you go.
So they got another draft ahead. And I said all along, they're probably one more draft away. So now they got work to do.
Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go here to Greg. Lee, what have you heard about Pete Carroll possibly going to the Raiders or Bears? The guy can still coach. I don't care how old he is. Great show.
He's 73 with the work habits of a 53-year-old, the energy of a 33-year-old. I'd want to play for him. And if they, maybe Chicago. Raiders, I think, would be a great choice. Now, you're going to have to go get players. Raiders don't have a lot of players. But the Raiders do have 10 draft picks and $107 million in cap space left behind. So at the end of the day, Pete Carroll to me seems to be a good fit. And as I said, John Spytek, who is the assistant general manager in Tampa, and he's the one that's kind of responsible for the rebuilding of a lot of that young talent on that football team. He and Brady are kind of collectively joined intellectually in terms of football. So maybe Spytek becomes the general manager of the Raiders. You hire Pete Carroll, who just, I think, brings great credibility. So I don't care about the age 73. I care about the accomplishment of that man. What he did with the Seahawks was phenomenal. What he did when USC hired him, the general consensus is, why him? USC's big cigars. Why him? He had failed with New England and the Jets because they were bad situations when he was a head coach there. Well, why him? You saw what he did in terms of players and building and offensive playbooks, defensive playbooks, and then he did the same damn thing with the Seahawks. So, right guy, got a chance to make the right choice.
Does Pete Carroll have any kind of a relationship with Tom Brady? Is there any connection between those two at all?
No, not that I really know of. No. Pete Carroll's gone from New England and even the Jets long before Brady became a superstar.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I kind of like your point earlier about having like an offensive guru go into Chicago because they've got the quarterback and all the other skill players. But for the Raiders, it makes you do wonder, do they go with more of a defensive minded guy? Because that's what Pete Carroll is really known for, right?
Sure, exactly. And they got a lot of young guys defensively. I thought potentially they were going to have a pretty good season this past year because they had drafted well and they signed free agents on defense and they all got hurt. They lost their entire defensive front line. They couldn't keep their secondary on the field. All these athletes that they had stockpiled kept getting hurt. And then obviously they let Josh Jacobs go at running back and they traded Devontae Adams. They force-fed. They got 2 offensive linemen who were starters all year who I think got better as the year went on. But they still got holes, a lot of holes on the roster. But Pete Carroll's on his driver's license, defensive guru.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I thought. So who knows? That could work out maybe.
We'll see.
All right, we'll see. Keep on moving here. Let's go here to Callan. Afternoon, gents. Lee, I'm curious to know your thoughts about the NHL deviating from an all-star game to the Four Nations tourney. Is a sign that the NFL will let players go to the Olympics in 2026?
I believe it's already been approved that they're going to the Olympics in 2026. The All-Star game, it became a skills competition now. It's just really different. It's not as sexy as it used to be. What would really be cool would be an All-Star week that might involve a tournament involving Team Canada, Team USA, Team Scandinavia, Team Russia, or Team Europe. If you could have a 4-team tournament in place of the All-Star game at the All-Star site, that'd be kind of cool. But the injury factor is also an issue in these All-Star games. You don't want to lose somebody with a significant knee injury playing in an All-Star game 4-team tourney. So they've never quite solved what they should do with that.
Do you think we're going to get to a point where people don't really care about all-star games anymore? Because maybe 30, 40 years ago, that was a big deal during the season to see this cross-mingling of players on the same team. But now it's like, whatever. It's more of like an entertainment event than it is like a legitimate game.
Outside of the history and legacy of the baseball all-star game, which I still think has great value. Look at the fiasco the NBA All-Star game has turned into, and what they're going to try this year is 40-point exhibition games.
Yeah.
Please. The Pro Bowl games become flag football. Who watches that stuff? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't have any social life, so maybe on a Sunday afternoon you're going to watch it. Me, flag football?
No, not at all. No.
So the baseball All-Star game at Camden Yards and Tony Gwynn and all that.
Yeah.
I still watch that because of color and pageantry. The rest, not me at all.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going here.
Callan, thanks for the input.
Okay. Let's go here to JDS third. He goes, Roki met the Padres this weekend. Which owner sat in on that meeting? John, Tom, Matt, Bob, Shield? What do you think AJ's answer was when Roki asked who his catcher will be?
Well, at the end of the day, the Padres got holes. At the end of the day, Sasaki went to Toronto, which he had never done before. He did not visit anybody at their facility. So it's going to be fascinating to see. He can sign on Wednesday, anytime between the 15th and the 23rd. Most people of the opinion it's between the Dodgers, who have all this money, and the Padres, who seem to have these issues now out front in this ownership civil war. And then, obviously, maybe the Red Sox. I've been told the Yankees and Mets are still in it. Now Toronto seems to have somehow gotten in it, although that to me is a strange fit. But this negotiation has been very different than any other negotiation with a Japanese star.
I know the Padres are in a tough spot here, unless there is just some like deep connection that AJ has with Sasaki, or the Yu Darvish factor, or the LA San Diego rivalry. But if you don't really care about any of that, there is no emotional connection. I don't see how he comes to San Diego. Well, there's so many big problems going on right now.
Except, though, that Preller has quite the working relationship with player agents, Japanese baseball. He has a consortium of retired Japanese players, the Nomos of the world, that work for him. Their boots on the ground in Japan and Korea are everywhere. So he's got, I think, a track record of involvement on the Pacific Rim. So I think that's a real positive. He's not some total stranger. Mm-hmm. Sasaki's really different. So who knows what's gonna make the biggest difference in determination. His meetings with each of the original 7 clubs were kind of unique. This is what I want to hear from you. I don't want to meet with Ohtani, and I don't want to meet with Darvish or anybody else. He is friends with Kikuchi, who just signed with the Angels. Kikuchi came to the U.S. and pitched for Toronto. So Kikuchi might have been a link to have him say, go visit the Blue Jays. So it's really interesting the way he's handled this business.
It would be funny if he just shocked the world and went to the Angels or went to the Cubs or some team we didn't expect. I think most baseball fans are figuring, okay, he's going to go to the Dodgers. And when he signs the contract, we're all going to roll our eyes. And then the Dodger fans are going to be dancing peacocks saying, see, told you so, told you he was coming to LA. That's probably what's going to happen.
Oh, I can't wait to the podcast after he signs to get the reaction from everybody else.
Now, one question, though, on this point here that JD brings up, all these other Seidlers, I don't know anything about them. Do you?
No, not at all. I know Tom Seidler very well, who is actively involved within the community on behalf of the Padres, working under Peter. I don't know John. John is the older brother. I don't know Bob. I don't know Matt at all. I don't know that they've ever really been involved in day-to-day operations of the Padres. So, yeah, there's a bit of an unknown there for sure.
Yeah, I want to find out more.
Okay, a couple more here.
Okay, a couple more. Let's go here to Kalani. He says, mucho losing Chargers. Spanos sucks eternal.
You have an opinion about the former owner and this team? It's terrible. Everybody I know thinks that Justin Herbert is a star, and he had a really bad day. And I tend to think he had a bad day because he had bad execution from everybody who was around him. They take a fair share of this blame. But in terms of the dislike of Team Spanos, the quote first family of football, yeah. How do you like that? Boy, that ended up really bad.
I'm so happy I'm no longer like a totally emotionally invested in this team like I used to be. And so now when they lose like this, I can just go like, it's just like another thing. So,
yeah, well, I think everybody this morning, my one man's opinion column on my website, which you should read, everybody expected me to pile on. Well, I didn't pile on. I just called it as I saw it. And I blamed the offensive front, and I blamed the wide receivers and the tight ends for drop passes and where the hell's a running game. And I denounced Greg Roman and Jesse Minter, et cetera, because they got blood on their hands for this whole thing. It just wasn't on the kid quarterback. Social media, I think, has been terribly unfair to Justin Herbert.
Well, they had problems with their kicking game in there.
Sure.
When they're like a punt blocked or something like that. I mean, it was just the whole thing was just a mess.
Field goal. That kicker was 39 of 42, and he got one blocked.
Yeah.
The punter, who had been gold all year, he got one tipped. I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong and more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's go to social media.
Okay, social media. Let's bring up some of our friends here. And okay, let's go here to the NBA. Whoops, got Kalani's message still up there. Let me turn that one off. Okay, here we go. This is from Hey Foster Guy. He goes, the NBA is unwatchable and couldn't get less entertaining. Even the playoffs suck now, especially since you got to slog through 4 rounds of the best of 7, and that takes 2 months because they only play like twice a week.
Yeah, it's the whole game right now, I think, is unwatchable. Now, postseason, I'll disagree with you. I think when you get to postseason play, where you got the best in the business going against each other, the bigs versus the bigs, the three-point shooters, et cetera. And these guys play really hard in the postseason. Postseason is very, very physical. So a lot of hard fouls in those games, too. A lot of challenges of the officials to make these games work, and get through these games. So I don't think there's a big issue with the end of the season. But there's so many games during the course of the campaign, Foster, that how important are they? And if you only have 4 or 5 teams that are really, really good upper echelon teams, and everybody else is just putting in time because they got to play the schedule, then how important is a Portland-Sacramento game on a Wednesday night in the middle of the season? But I don't think there's anything wrong with the quality of play, because I think the intensity level gets ratcheted up when we get to postseason play. But boy, the game right now is a problem. And I think that the deportment of the players, Anthony Edwards just got fined $50,000 again today because Anthony Edwards did this to a referee right in front of his face. The lack of respect of these guys is just off the charts. And I think that's a detriment to the image of the NBA, that we got Anthony Edwards giving an official a finger right in his face. This guy's got so many issues. I swear to you, there's a mental health issue with Joel Embiid. There's a mental health issue with Anthony Edwards. What is Adam Silver going to do to stop this? Because it's a bad look for the NBA.
Yeah, there are a lot of mental health issues here. But I just see guys like heaving up bricks, missed passes, missed dunks. It's just it's sloppy play. And imagine spending big money to go to those games and just see that kind of a performance. I mean, for me, I'll pay attention to the NBA through the regular season, but not until it gets to the playoffs, and then I really focus.
And the playoffs is a different level of competition.
Oh, yeah.
The pride factor, and obviously a lot of special things there. Interesting comment. Foster, thanks for joining us. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to from Los Angeles. He goes, nobody saw this coming. You're talking about your opinion about the Civil War with the Padres. Nobody saw this coming. The entire Los Angeles Dodgers fan base saw this coming. Machado, $300 million. Tatis, $300 million. Bogarts, $300 million. Unsustainable contracts in a small market.
Well, I remember when that first question first came up, and the national media questioned Peter Seidler about sustainability. And that was a monstrously big conversation. It was a hot button issue. They got really upset at the media for even bringing this up. At the end of the day, when you have a market of 3.5 million and you're paying these kinds of contracts with the length, 10-year contracts, 12-year contracts, et cetera, and then you can't trade those contracts, that's not a good business model. I may like Preller. I think Preller's kind of a unique individual. His boots on the ground, his ability to scout, his sales pitches. I think he's really different. He might be a different breed of cat. But his inability to understand dollars and cents and values, the contracts he's given out have just put this team against the wall. And now they're against the wall and they can't get out. They got contracts they can't trade. People can say, oh, maybe we'll send Bogarts back to Boston. Boston doesn't want that contract through age 42. And, as much as I like Cronenworth and what a gritty, grindy guy he is, that's $70 million for the next 7 years for Cronenworth. Nobody wants to pay Cronenworth $10 million per season to be a 240, 250 hitter. So As much as I like AJ and his ability to scout and go get guys, contracts he's given out are obscene, and now they're in a corner because of the injury factor and the inability, and because now the payroll has to come down because of luxury tax rules. End of sermon on AJ Preller.
Now let's just pretend for a minute that Sheila Seidler was the point person. Do you think she would spend the same way that Peter Seidler spent?
She would listen to the other people from Seidler Equity and decide, but Peter was Seidler Equity. And so now it's a different group of people that are calling the shots. But at the end of the day, just think about where we were a year and a half ago. Peter passed. A year and a half ago, they lost their $60 million per year TV contract with Bally Sports bankruptcy. A year and a half ago, they owed the commissioner $40 million luxury tax payment. That's not good. That's not a good business model in a market of 3.5. Now, granted, sold out all those games, record revenue, record attendance. But at the end of the day, you got all this mounting debt that has been accumulated because AJ gave out all these obscene contracts. Eric Hosmer is the poster boy for bad decisions financially.
Yeah, but that like you say, it's only got 1 year left on that. But I think if you look at it in the rearview mirror, that Tatis deal doesn't look so bad, And if Cronenworth is like productive like he was in his first few years, that doesn't look that bad. I mean, the Bogarts deal is a legit problem, and that was unnecessary when we seem to have 23 shortstops and then he signs up another one. So, there's a lot to question AJ Preller. I like the swagger. I like the wheeling and dealing. I like his due diligence and persistence. I'm still an AJ Preller fan, and I know a lot of the guys have written him off, but I'm not quite yet ready to do that.
They're not done yet. There can be deals between now and spring training. Hell, anyway, deals leading up to opening day. But at the end of the day, they can't have a payroll. It's going to be $220 million or $240 million because of the tax. So somebody's leaving. And so if he has to trade somebody's, now he's creating holes on his roster. How are you going to replace those somebodies you had to get rid of because of the contracts you gave out? Big issue.
Yeah, he's in a pickle.
Really is.
Okay,
let's do one more social media here.
Okay, let's talk some football. This is great. This is you from Euphoria Deep talking about the Chargers. He goes, Hacksaw, if you're right on your picks, my picks are the same. That sets up a third Chiefs-Chargers meeting. I think we may shock the world in Kansas City. We played them so close twice, even with major injuries. Lady Luck has to smile on us sometime.
He must have written that before the game.
Yeah, he did.
We'll just take that one off the board. That one doesn't count. We'll give you a freebie and another chance. I thought that actually, in all honesty, I thought they could win in Houston because Houston was not the same football team by virtue of all the injuries. I mean, granted, Nico Collins went crazy on the Charger cornerback. Christian Fulton had a miserable day. I don't think he's been a great cornerback all year. But they did lose Stephon Diggs, and then they lost the second wide receiver with that catastrophic injury a couple weeks ago that just devastated them emotionally. And then Joe Mixon got hurt in the middle of the season. They weren't running the football. But I thought they could win this game, but that defense stepped up, and that defense just reamed the Chargers' offensive line, which caused all kinds of problems for Herbert, and there was no running game. And then it just cascaded. And then Mixon got back healthy, and you saw what happened at the end of the game. They had a 13-play drive, and Mixon carried it 11 times, and they could not stop him. So there are problems everywhere.
All problems. But you know what? The energy from this guy is great. I mean, because consider that when the Chargers were here in San Diego, and we were going through all of our emotional ups and downs with the team, and then they left, 90% of Charger fans said, see you later. We don't care about you anymore. Yeah, there's a few that stuck around and followed them. They go to LA. No one's following much in LA. And then finally, some people in LA start warming up and they're like, hey, here's an NFL team. I'm going to be a Charger fan.
Because of Herbert.
Yeah. And maybe just because they just want to pick a team, and they want to plant a flag. I'm a Charger fan. Here we go. Blue and gold. And then it's the same old chargering thing. It's like a disease that spread up to LA. And now these fans are suffering what we went through for decades.
Yeah, to a degree, yes. And we'll just see what in the next week or so, what kind of fallout there is on the organization, because this just leaves a terrible black cloud over what many thought was going to be Harbaugh taking a step forward, credibility, great track record, sales pitch, culture, all those positive things have been kind of pushed to the side.
They did take a step forward. I mean, compare their record to last year. I mean, I'll give them that. But maybe, I don't know, did our expectations get overinflated? You know, when suddenly they were like playing well and they were getting into the playoffs.
Expectation because you got the kid quarterback who was winning games for him.
Yeah. And the kid quarterback that everyone said was like the great quarterback that he's just waiting for that breakout game. I don't know. I just think expectations were kind of all over the place here throughout the year.
And you don't want me to invoke a hacksawism. Who the hell did you beat?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we know who they beat. They beat like what, Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. You know, that's who they beat.
All right. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our Monday podcast. We do sports talk the way it should be done. Glad you're part of our team. Want you to share, want you to subscribe, tell everybody what we do, email them and say, hey, you need to check this stuff out. Hacksaw is back along with his partner broadcasting from left field in a new studio. This podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. We'll be back here Thursday at 1 p.m. Get ready to preview championship weekend college football. And of course, we'll get ready to talk about the second round of the NFL playoffs. John, even though you dislike my opinions, have yourself a great sports week.
Tonight, Rams, Vikings. Who's your pick?
My heart says Minnesota. Way too much firepower. My head says I can't wait for the checkers chess game. Sean McVay, X's and O's. Kevin O'Connell's X's and O's. That's going to be fun.
It's going to be a great game. I want to see O'Connell be victorious in this one.
Go Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us, being part of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.